I'm Reagan Ray.
I'm Hayden Craddock.
I'm Reynolds Hefner.
I'm Ben Kelly.
Hey, I'm John T. Edge.
Okay, so you mentioned that in your childhood you went to like New Way and Fresh Air as like a runaway restaurant.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those in like your adult life that you like to go to when you have your chance?
Yeah, so we live in Oxford, Mississippi, my wife and I do, and Memphis is the largest, town that's within driving distance for us. It's an hour and change, but we actually go to Birmingham because there's a restaurant there called Chez Fonfon that's a French bistro, and it's run by friends of ours, Frank and Partis Stitt, and they have escargot, and they have, I was just there the other night, I had a beautiful trout almondine, and a slice of carrot cake to finish, and stinky cheese before that. And it feels like, I'm traveling up and out of the American South and landing somewhere in France. But there it is, rooted in a neighborhood in Birmingham. That's our getaway restaurant. That's a place where, Oxford's in the rear view, whatever we're dealing with at home is in the rear view, and when that place is on the horizon, we're happy.
That's awesome.
How would you say that food explores the culture of the South?
Well, the way I think about it is, the art we make reflects who we are, reflects where we come from. So you can think about that in terms of music. If somebody said, what's the music that comes out of Macon, what would you say? Not like music for old people like me, not whoever you listen to right now, but historically, what music has come out of Macon?
Like the Allman Brothers.
Allman Brothers, yeah. Otis Redding, yeah. So those, the Allman Brothers were from Jacksonville, Florida. They moved here to Macon under Phil Walden. His son went to school here at Stratford. Capricorn Records came up and out of Macon. This was a place where country people came to the city to try something new. It was a place at that point in the 70s where people were pushing back against tradition and establishment, and Macon became a hotbed of that for recording. And it was black artists and white artists recording together, which at that point was radical. And if you tell that story, you begin to understand how that reflects Macon in that moment. Just after the Civil Rights Movement, when black and white were learning how to live together. I think food can do the same thing. So I could tell you a story. I could use another Macon story. We could talk about the H&H cafeteria. H&H, owned by Mama Louise and Mama Hudson, they fed the Allmans when the Allmans didn't have enough money to buy plates of food. I think they came in wanting 2 plates for 7 people, and Mama Louise said, "No, I'm going to feed all of y'all." What she did in that moment, a black restaurant owner serving a mostly white band, it was an integrated band, she was building this kind of place of welcome. She was setting a proverbial welcome table, which is one of the kind of hallmark symbols of the Civil Rights Movement. So I can tell you a story about music and say it was very much grounded in that moment in Macon, Georgia. And I can tell you the same story by way of food. And I could just take you across the South and talk about that. We could talk about barbecue. For the longest time in the South, the people who did the work at barbecue restaurants were usually African American men. It was sooty work, it was nasty work, it was hard work. It was work for the most part, not always, but the most part, that middle class white people didn't want to do. So if you look at this thing that we now value so much as a totem of Southern identity, barbecue, that begins out of the black experience in the American South. And that's another way to talk about place and identity in the South. And food and music, to me, are the best 2 ways. That was a long answer. I'll try to make the next one short.
That was a great answer. Okay, you next.
All right, go.
So, you grew up in Georgia and you went to Ole Miss. What Southern regional authors would you say influenced you the most?
Well, I grew up about, 15 miles from Flannery O'Connor's house in Milledgeville. And as a boy, my mother took me there to go visit Miss O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor had passed by then. And I remember, and my mother was fascinated by her work, by Flannery O'Connor's writing, and thus so was I. And this idea of a Southern Gothic, this idea of outsized characters was something that captured my attention. My mother drove us to Flannery O'Connor's mother's house that day, and I remember two things. Well, it was just one thing, but two things from one bird. And that was there were peacocks running everywhere. And they were screeching and they were defecating. And as a boy pulling up, my mother built this up. It's like, oh, you got to go to Flannery O'Connor. You got to meet Flannery O'Connor's mother. It's a big deal. And I show up and there's just peacocks running around and they're pooping everywhere. Having said that, I value her work documenting the place I grew up. I also came to read Walker Percy. When I was living in Atlanta, Walker Percy wrote about kind of a malaise that people experience in their late 20s and early 30s because they're trying to figure out who they are and what they're, who they're going to be. Walker Percy was trained as a medical doctor, but really made his name in the world as a novelist, and he was doing that himself. Y'all are too young for this yet, but that moment hits when you're in your 20s. You're like, where am I going to be? What am I going to do? You have to ask yourself those questions, and Walker Percy wrote really well, I think, about all those questions we ask of ourselves. Who are we going to be?
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So you're from Clinton,
Mhm.
but now you go all around the country,
Yep.
reviewing food, making shows, writing books. So do you still feel like you have a home in the South? And if so, who, where, what is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about that a lot, and in many ways, this book, House of Smoke, I've written is about my search for home. I grew up in Clinton. Was born in I'm so old. I was born in 1962. So I was born at the moment when our nation was marking the 100th anniversary of the Civil Rights Movement. The 100th anniversary of the Civil War, and we were in the midst of the Civil Rights Movement. In front of our house in Clinton was an historical marker telling of General Iverson, a Confederate brigadier general who was born in our house. So the place I grew up was marked in that way. The place I live now, Oxford, Mississippi, my wife and I live about 4 blocks south of the courthouse square. If you go 4 blocks in the other direction, you're at Roanoke, which is William Faulkner's home. Faulkner, a Nobel laureate from Mississippi. If you go 6 blocks in the other direction, still you land at the University of Mississippi where I work. Those two poles kind of frame my life, where I began in Clinton and where I now live in Oxford. I claim a home in Oxford, Mississippi. It's where I met my wife, it's where she birthed our son, and it's where we choose to live and contribute. The way I think about home is it's not so much where you're born or how many generations deep your parents go, it's where do you choose to live and contribute. And the contribute part to me is really important. It's not just to live somewhere, it's I care enough about this place to contribute to it. I care enough about this place to make change in it, to make it better. I care enough about this place to claim it as my own, and I claim Oxford.
Well, thank you for being here with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you
y'all.
so much.
Thank you.